Does Apple even care about the Mac anymore? It's a fair question. Apple hasn't had an overarching message for the Mac in a while now. Not a public one at any rate. They've had products, sure, but a few MacBook Pro ads aside, these products have largely been left to speak for themselves, until now. Today, Apple is debuting a campaign called Behind the Mac. It features 12 consumers, creatives, and professionals who are using the Mac to make their mark on the world. They range from entrepreneurs to musicians, photographers to accessibility advocates. The goal seems to be to tell the modern story of the Mac through its users and to show how that story remains firmly grounded in Apple's desire to democratize computing, empower individuals, and expand the potential of creativity and productivity for everyone. But will it resonate? Right now, the popular narrative is that, in face of the overwhelming success of iPhone and iPad, Apple has left the Mac to stagnate. It's like Apple has two kids. One has graduated, gotten a job, and settled down with a family, and the other is Taylor Swift. You love them both, but the mature, stable one can often feel neglected compared to the rock star you can't take your eyes off for a second. It's especially tough to argue when it comes to the Mac Mini, which hasn't seen an upgrade, never mind a significant upgrade, going on half a decade. Functionally, it's last on the list. iOS devices outsell Macs by a huge margin. Laptop Macs outsell desktop Macs by a huge margin. iMacs outsell desktop Macs by a huge margin. So in terms of priorities, you can see how Mac Mini can fall by the wayside. But no updates? In half a decade? Zero excuses for that. Other Macs though, it's not so easy. In 2015, we got DCI P3 iMacs, the first Macs with wide color gamut. Apple shipped 5K iMacs and a custom T-Con the year before. Also the new MacBook, which was almost iPad-like in its portability and single-portedness, which also introduced the butterfly and dome switch keyboard. In 2016, we got the new MacBook Pro with a T1 chip to enable Touch ID and Apple Pay, a touch bar to surface often forgotten shortcuts, custom storage controllers, and Thunderbolt 3 ports, also Skylake MacBooks and 27-inch iMac. In 2017, we got the new iMac Pro with workstation-class internals crammed into a classic chassis and a T2 chip to centralize controllers and enable secure boot, along with Kaby Lake versions of the regular iMac as well as the MacBook Pro and MacBook.
Can't innovate anymore, my ass.
We're only halfway through 2018, but I expect we'll get this year's Mac update soon enough. Why not sooner? Part of that is Intel. They hit a wall with 10 nanometer and they hit it hard. It's unclear how or if they'll recover and if Apple is going to continue to put up with these delays or start taking those ARM Macs out of the labs and putting them on the shelves. For 2019 though, Apple has atypically already tipped its Mac hat. A new Mac Pro with Pro Display developed in part with its new Pro Workflow team. Apple is sometimes dinged for not consulting with outside experts, which is often true. With one huge caveat, Apple prefers to hire those experts and make them internal. That way Apple has access to them all the time, there are no issues with disclosure, and the experts have skin in the game. It's easy to give advice if you don't have to see it through. It's another thing when you're part of the team and you have to make sure a product hits the market. The Workflow team has experts from the fields of 3D animation, visual effects, video editing, audio engineering, and more. They're there to hit the products Apple is making, to identify bottlenecks in hardware and software, and to make sure it's all addressed before anything new ships. And it's something Apple needs to do, especially for creative pros who felt like Apple's mainstream success has come at the cost of its commitment to power users. And while the pro market and its needs are broader and more diverse than ever, that message does seem to be one Apple is taking to heart. The 2013 Mac Pro was a dead end, not what Apple expected. Then the 12-inch MacBook never came down to the sub-$1,000 MacBook Air pricing many consumers expected. The Touch Bar and Butterfly keyboards proved highly divisive, which is unusual for features in Apple's MacBook lineup. And there's still a lot to work on, including getting the new Mac Pro out, salvaging the Mac Mini, shipping the Coffee Lake updates to the iMac and MacBooks, and addressing creative pros who now have interesting hardware from Microsoft targeted specifically at their market. But it does feel like we're turning a corner. Both Final Cut Pro 10 and Logic Pro 10 have been getting significant and frequent updates. macOS Mojave, which will ship this fall, has features inspired by creative pros, even if Apple is trying to make them useful for everyone. The new iMac Pro is proven to be a beast, especially with the eGPU support added to macOS. Then there's that new Mac Pro and Pro Display, and now, Behind the Mac. As someone who deeply loves and is deeply invested in the Mac, this hits all my optimism buttons, because I think it shows that Apple deeply loves and is deeply invested in the Mac as well. Let's be candid. Apple has iPhone and iPad money. It could ditch its legacy computer line, add Xcode and Pro apps to iOS, and ride that cash cow straight into the sunset. It's been advised to do that. Many other companies would long since have done that. But that's not the direction Apple's going. It's admitting some wrong turns and working to right them, and it's continuing to do things in the personal computer space that only Apple can do, including using its industry-leading silicon team to make the Mac faster, more convenient, and more secure. That only happens when the company, like the campaign, are behind the Mac. It's easy for me to talk about on a video. It is much harder to actually be in charge of doing all this stuff. Computers are still largely black boxes to me, but I want to find out more. I want to learn more, and luckily I have brilliant.org/vector to help me out. They have a bunch of amazing courses, including Computer Science Fundamentals, which has intro to algorithms, recursion, stacks and queues, binary trees, heaps, literally everything I need to know to actually start understanding how these computers work. Because they're sponsoring the show, you can go to brilliant.org/vector and sign up for free right now. And the first 200 of you that sign up can get 20% off the premium courses. Thank you so much, Brilliant. Is Apple still neglecting the Mac? Are they getting back into the game? Hit like, hit subscribe, let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.
But is it really so wrong?